More than 21 centuries ago, a mechanism of fabulous ingenuity was created in Greece, a machine capable of indicating exactly how the sky would look for decades to come, the position of the sun and moon, lunar phases, and even eclipses. But this incredible invention would be drowned in the sea and its secret forgotten for 2,000 years.
Pulled from a shipwreck, a corroded brass relic stunned the world, not treasure, but a machine.
Including one object that defied explanation. It was the remains of a coral-encrusted wooden and bronze box that, curiously, looked like a clock.
2,000 years old, built by hand, and it could predict the sky. Eclipses, planetary motion, the calendar of the cosmos, calculated before the word computer existed. How did a hand-cranked device foresee eclipses decades in advance? Who built a computer before computers existed? And why did history forget them? For a century, it was dismissed as impossible. Now its gears are speaking, and what they say rewrites history. This is the Antikythera Mechanism, the ancient engine that reads the future, and its secrets challenge everything we thought we knew about the ancient mind.
It's become known as the Antikythera Mechanism.
We have 8 hands. The long hand shows the day of the year on the outer ring. The other ones show the place in the sky of the moon, the sun, and the 5 planets that the ancients knew about.
The discovery, before computers hummed and satellites watched the skies, someone built a machine that could predict the future, then lost it to the sea. For 2,000 years, it lay in darkness, its gears frozen in time, waiting for human hands to find it again. To understand how the ancient world once read the cosmos, we have to begin not in a laboratory or a library, but beneath the waves. The discovery that changed everything began in the spring of 1900. The Aegean Sea stretches calm and endless under Mediterranean skies, its surface broken only by the occasional storm. Beneath those waters lies a secret that has been waiting in silence for over 2,000 years. A crew of sponge divers from the Greek island of Symi is working the waters, led by their captain, Dimitrios Kondos. These men aren't archaeologists or treasure hunters. They're working-class divers searching for sponges to sell at market, clad in heavy canvas suits and copper helmets, descending into the cold darkness with nothing but a thin line connecting them to the surface. When bad weather forces them to take shelter near a small rocky island called Antikythera, nestled between Crete and the Peloponnese, they decide to make use of the downtime by diving. It's a decision that will alter the course of archaeological history forever. Captain Kondos sends one of his best men, Elias Stadiatus, into the water. Stadiatus drops through the blue, deeper and deeper, until he settles on the seabed at about 150 feet. And then he sees them. Bodies, dozens of them, twisted together in the gloom, limbs tangled in eerie stillness. His heart pounds, his breath quickens inside the helmet, panic floods his veins. Convinced he's stumbled onto some ancient mass grave, some underwater tomb where the dead have been sleeping for centuries, he yanks his signal line hard and rockets back to the surface, terror written across his face. But these aren't corpses. When Kondos himself descends to investigate, the truth reveals itself. These are statues, bronze figures frozen mid-stride, scattered across the wreck of an ancient ship. Kondos surfaces holding proof, a bronze arm, green with centuries of corrosion, still gripping the ocean floor. That single artifact marks the beginning of the very first, organized underwater excavation in Greek history. Over the following year, the Greek navy joins the effort. They pull up marble statues of gods and heroes, fine glassware that once graced wealthy tables, coins stamped with the faces of long-dead rulers, and countless fragments of a ship that met its end in violent waters. By 1901, crates packed with these treasures are being unpacked in the National Archaeological Museum in Athens. Among the statues and the pottery sits an unimpressive lump of corroded bronze and rotted wood. No one pays it much attention. It looks like debris, like junk, like something that should be tossed aside. For over a year, it sits untouched, ignored, gathering dust in the corner of a storage room. But on May 17, 1902, everything changes. Museum scholar Valerios Stais is examining the artifacts when something catches his eye. Peeking through the crust of corrosion, barely visible beneath layers of time and salt, is a bronze gear with teeth. It's small, intricate, impossibly precise, and it shouldn't be there. That single gear opens the door to one of the greatest mysteries in the history of science. This corroded lump isn't debris, it's a machine. An ancient analog computer that has been hiding at the bottom of the sea for over 2,000 years, waiting to reveal its secrets. The ship that carried it sank sometime in the second quarter of the 1st century BC, but the mechanism itself is even older. Scholars now believe it was built several decades before the wreck, pushing its origin back to more than 2,100 years ago. Today, what survives is just 82 fragments, roughly a third of the original device. Yet even in ruin, those fragments preserve 30 interlocking bronze gears, each one hand-cut with hundreds of teeth. The largest gear spans just over 5 inches across, its teeth still sharp enough to catch the light.
This was the first shock because anything from ancient Greece simply shouldn't have gear wheels. These were precision gears with teeth about 1 millimeter long, and this was just completely shocking.
All of these pieces now rest behind glass in the Athens Museum, silent witnesses to a lost age of genius. The century-long puzzle. For over a century, the Antikythera Mechanism haunted scientists. It sat there, broken and incomplete, whispering secrets no one could fully decode. Half of the machine survived the wreck. The other half was lost to the sea, dissolved by salt and time, leaving only ghosts of what once was. The surviving fragments became the bedrock of every theory, the hard boundary that couldn't be crossed. You can't just imagine what was lost. You have to build from what's there. The bronze, the teeth, the faint scratches of Greek letters carved into the metal by hands that have been dust for millennia. The largest fragment, known simply as Fragment A, holds most of the surviving gearwork. Other pieces preserve parts of circular scales and inscriptions so faint they're almost invisible. For decades, researchers could only guess at the mechanism's true purpose. Was it an astronomical calculator, a navigational tool, some kind of ancient clock? No one knew for certain. Then, in the 1970s, early X-ray studies began to reveal hidden layers of complexity. Gears nested inside gears, shafts passing through hollow tubes, inscriptions buried beneath corrosion. The mechanism was far more sophisticated than anyone had imagined. But the real breakthrough came in 2005 when a joint British and Greek team brought cutting-edge imaging equipment into the museum. One machine was a 12-ton computed tomography scanner nicknamed the Blade Runner, custom-built in the United Kingdom. It blasted high-energy X-rays through the bronze from every angle, producing cross-sections that could be stacked into a 3-dimensional view of the interior. The other was a reflectance imaging system from Hewlett-Packard that allowed researchers to virtually relight the surface of the fragments, pulling out faint scratches and letters that were completely invisible to the naked eye. Over the course of 2 intense weeks, the team scanned every fragment. What emerged from those scans was nothing short of breathtaking. Not only did they reveal the hidden gears, but they also uncovered thousands of text characters engraved on the metal plates, entire passages of instructions and explanations written in ancient Greek. For the first time since the ship went down, the machine itself was speaking again, telling its own story through its inscriptions. But there was a problem. The highest magnification scans, the ones designed to capture details at a resolution of just a few thousandths of an inch, were riddled with glitches. During the 2005 session, roughly 25 of nearly 3,000 scan slices failed to record properly, and the fragment itself may have shifted slightly during imaging. The result was blur and distortion, stripes and gaps appearing exactly where researchers most needed clarity. For over a decade, those imperfect scans were the best anyone had. But in 2018, a team from University College London decided to go back to the raw data. They spent months painstakingly reprocessing the scans, filling in the missing slices, correcting the distortions, sharpening the images pixel by pixel. New letters came into focus, contested readings gained certainty, and a single Greek character, previously unreadable, could change the interpretation of an entire cycle, could flip the meaning of a prediction from lunar to solar, from day to night. This wasn't just academic detective work. This was the difference between understanding the machine and being forever lost in guesswork. What the back reveals. So what do the readable portions actually reveal? Let's start with the back, because that side survives best and tells us the most. The upper dial is a spiral that winds 5 times around, marking off 235 lunar months, the famous 19-year metonic cycle that ancient Greeks used to keep their lunar calendars aligned with the solar seasons. Beside it sits a smaller subdial, counting 76 years, the Ecliptic cycle, which tightened the long-term accuracy even further. The lower half of the back features another spiral, this one tracking 223 lunar months, the Saros cycle, which has been used for millennia to predict eclipses with uncanny precision. Nested inside that spiral is an even smaller dial tracking the Exeligmos, a 54-year triple Saros that corrects for the awkward remainder of 8 hours in each cycle, ensuring eclipse timing stays razor-sharp over generations. Another tiny dial marks out 4-year intervals for the Great Pan-Hellenic Games, the ancient Greek Olympics, and their sister competitions. None of this is speculation.
The Olympic torch burns once more with the pomp of the ages.
These functions are inscribed directly into the bronze. If you zoom closer to the Saros spiral, the machine becomes shockingly practical. Each cell that might contain an eclipse carries a compact note written in abbreviated Greek. A single letter signals whether the eclipse is lunar or solar. Sigma for Selene, the moon. Eta for Helios, the sun. A symbol resembling an anchor, actually a ligature combining omega and a rho, means hour, followed by a letter number indicating the specific time. Phrases like of the day or of the night warn the user whether the eclipse would be visible from Greece or lost beneath the horizon. Beneath each glyph sits an index letter pointing to a longer block of explanatory text carved elsewhere on the mechanism. Those texts describe details like the direction the shadow would move, how much of the sun or moon would be covered, and even the colors you could expect to see in the sky during the event. Imagine turning a crank to advance the mechanism to a particular month, seeing a marker flag an upcoming eclipse, and then reading off the type, the exact timing, and a full description of what you'd witness. For a device from the 1st century BC, that level of sophistication is almost incomprehensible. The inscriptions also carry a cultural fingerprint. In 2008, a major study of the back dial identified the full set of month names engraved on the metonic spiral. They didn't match the well-known Athenian calendar that scholars expected. Instead, they belong to the Corinthian family of calendars used in northwestern Greece, particularly in regions like Epirus and Corcyra. Calendars in the ancient world were civic markers tied to specific cities and colonies. By engraving those particular month names, the maker of the mechanism effectively signed the device with its geographic and cultural identity. Researchers now believe the sequence best fits the Epirote calendar, possibly linked to the colony of Ambracia. That's not just a detail, it's a clue to where this machine was made and who commissioned it. The missing front and the challenge. The front of the mechanism is far less complete, and that's where the real mystery deepens. The gears and plates that once stood proud above the main frame are gone, lost to the sea, leaving only fragments of the cover plates behind. Yet those covers were inscribed with some of the most important information on the entire device. In 2016, researchers published a critical edition of what they called the front cover inscription, and what they found was staggering. These weren't poetic descriptions or philosophical musings. They were lists of exact planetary relations for each of the 5 planets known to the ancient world: Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. The inscriptions spelled out precisely how many synodic cycles, meaning phase returns with respect to the Sun, equal whole numbers of years and complete revolutions through the zodiac. In plain terms, the cover laid down the integer ratios that the missing gear trains had to reproduce. When the inscription says that after a certain number of years, a planet completes an exact number of synodic cycles and zodiacal revolutions, that's not a suggestion. That's a requirement, a set of mathematical constraints that any reconstruction of the front must satisfy perfectly. This is what makes the missing half such a monumental challenge. Researchers aren't free to imagine any design they like. The surviving gears show what mechanical techniques the ancient builders used. The inscriptions dictate which mathematical periods had to appear on the front display. And the physical space available inside the bronze frame sets hard limits on how many wheels and axles could fit without colliding. A viable reconstruction has to satisfy all three constraints simultaneously: mechanical, mathematical, and spatial. It's like being handed half of a watch and a list of what the hands should display, then being told to rebuild the missing half using only techniques available in ancient Greece, and make it fit in a space no thicker than your thumb. Rebuilding the impossible, the missing front half wasn't pieced together by wild speculation. It was rebuilt through painstaking engineering, step by step, using the hard facts already established. Gear counts, tooth sizes, surviving inscriptions, and the literal bronze framework all became inputs for reconstructing what no longer exists. Before the gears could even be designed, artificial intelligence gave scholars a crucial head start. A model called Ithaca, created by DeepMind, specializes in restoring broken Greek inscriptions. On its own, it predicts missing letters with about 62% accuracy. But when historians use it alongside their own expertise, accuracy jumps from roughly 25% to over 70%. This matters enormously because the numbers carved on the cover plates are the exact targets the front gears have to hit. Cleaner, more confident readings meant fewer guesses, tighter constraints, and a narrower path forward. The first person to prove the front could be more than a thought experiment was Michael T. Wright in the early 2000s. Wright, then a curator at the Science Museum in London, didn't just theorize. He hand-built working models out of brass. He introduced epicyclic gearing, where small gears are mounted on rotating arms that orbit around larger gears, creating the irregular back-and-forth motion planets display in the night sky. He also demonstrated the pin and slot device, a clever mechanism where a pin moving inside a slot forces a follower gear to speed up and slow down smoothly, mimicking the way planets appear to accelerate and decelerate as they move through their orbits. Ancient Greek astronomers expected such irregular motion because that's exactly what they observed. Wright even built a full planetarium model years before the cover inscriptions were fully deciphered. His layout wasn't perfect, but he proved in solid metal that the front could carry planetary motions using techniques that fit squarely within the ancient Greek toolkit. He moved the debate from maybe impossible to yes, we can actually do this. Later teams stood firmly on that foundation and pushed further. The decisive leap came in 2021 when a University College London team unveiled what they called their model of the cosmos. This wasn't a vague sketch or a flashy computer animation. It was a complete front-side architecture that had to obey brutal, unforgiving rules. It had to fit inside the physical clearances left in the surviving frame. It had to reproduce the exact integer-period relations carved into the inscriptions. And it had to allow multiple shafts and nested tubes to pass through the center without jamming or colliding. At the heart of this design sits a small dome representing Earth, surrounded by the system for the Moon. Around that core, the planetary gear trains wrap inward so that their outputs feed into a bundle of thin, nested tubes at the center. The researchers called this bundle the central coaxial output, and it's the backbone of the entire system. It lets multiple displays share the same hub without crashing into each other, a packaging trick that's as elegant as it is essential. One of the smartest moves in the 2021 design was relocating the initial drive gears for the true Sun and the three outer planets, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. Earlier reconstructions placed those starter gears behind a large circular plate, which created a nightmare. To reach around that plate, you needed awkward brackets that added bulk and seemed highly unlikely for ancient builders working with limited tools and materials. The UCL team solved the problem by moving those gears to the front. That single shift opened up precious space, eliminated the bracket problem entirely, and gave each planetary gear train a clean, direct path to the central output. At the dead center of the mechanism sits a fixed gear, and compact epicyclic sets ride on that stationary anchor like planets orbiting a sun. Part of what makes this layout so elegant is gear sharing. Instead of designing each planet from scratch with its own isolated train, the UCL team let several planets borrow key wheels. The true Sun shares a gear with Saturn and uses the same fixed central gear that anchors all three superior planets. Mars and Jupiter share another intermediate gear. That kind of mechanical economy is absolutely essential when the space you're working with is measured in tenths of an inch. Every extra axle adds thickness. Every new wheel risks a collision. By sharing gears intelligently, the model stays thin, tight, and physically possible. The rebuild also had to respect a physical skeleton preserved in the largest surviving fragment. There's a main drive wheel with 4 spokes and sets of pillars mounted around its rim. Those pillars once supported 2 plates, a rectangular strap mounted on short pillars and a circular plate mounted on longer ones. The UCL design uses that frame as a sandwich, packing layers of gears into impossibly tight spaces. Between the big wheel and the strap, they crammed 9 closely stacked layers of gearing into a gap of about 0.59 inches. Between the strap and the circular plate, they squeezed most of the gearwork for the Sun and the outer planets into a gap of just 9.7 millimeters, roughly 0.38 inches. This is watchmaker-level engineering, measured in fractions of an inch, pushed to the absolute limits of what bronze and human hands could achieve. One of the most satisfying detective moments in the entire rebuild comes from a small mysterious block on one of the spokes. For years, no one could explain why it had a hole drilled straight through it. The 2021 architecture solved it. The small black and white moon sphere on the front face needs input from both the Sun and the Moon to display the correct phase. But if the front is built as concentric rings, you don't want to duplicate the Sun calculation just to drive the Moon display. The UCL design routes a mean Sun feed through a thin bar attached to that pierced block, creating the shortest possible bridge across the fixed central gears to reach the lunar phase device. Suddenly, the block isn't a puzzle anymore, it's a bracket with a clear, essential job. Under the hood, the designers kept each planetary train as lean as the mathematics would allow. The true Sun uses just 3 gears. Each superior planet, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, runs on a compact 7-gear epicyclic set. The inner planets, Mercury and Venus, use 5-gear trains with pin and slot followers to create their stop-and-go motion. Behind the rear plate, the surviving systems already account for 35 gears. The 2021 model adds 34 new gears in front to run the Cosmos display. Together, that makes 69 gears total. That number is tight enough to fit within the surviving bronze frame and specific enough that every single gear's tooth count and location can be listed and verified. What makes this 2021 rebuild genuinely credible is that it can be tested. In 2025, another research team ran computer simulations of the reconstruction. They used triangular tooth shapes, the sharp-edged style often seen in modern replicas, and then added small manufacturing errors to see what would happen under long-term use. The results were sobering. The tooth shape itself wasn't a major problem, but if the spacing between gears was off, by even the tiny amounts sometimes suggested by the fragments, the system could jam after extended operation. That doesn't mean the 2021 model is wrong. It just raises tougher, more practical questions. What kind of gear teeth did the Greeks actually cut? How precise were their measurements? How smooth was their bronze? The key point is this: we're no longer dealing with myths or legends. We're grappling with real engineering problems like tooth geometry, spacing tolerances, and mechanical wear, issues you can measure, model, and test in a lab. Reading the Cosmos picture, standing in front of this machine as it comes alive. At the center sits a tiny dome representing Earth, the anchor of everything. Wrapped around it, a pointer tracks the moon through the zodiac, while a small marble-sized sphere, half black and half white, rotates to show the moon's phases in real time. New moon to full moon, all playing out on a ball smaller than your thumbnail. Surrounding that are 6 rings, stacked like ripples on water, each carrying one of the wandering stars: Mercury, Venus, the Sun with its golden bead, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. The zodiac circle wraps around them all, and beyond that, a calendar ring marks the days. 9 celestial bodies, all moving at once, all readable in a single glance. Here's what makes it extraordinary. Each planetary ring carries markers for the moments ancient astronomers lived for, conjunctions when planets vanish into the sun's glare, oppositions when Mars glows blood red at midnight directly opposite the sun, elongations when Venus shines brightest as the evening star, and the stations, those eerie moments when a planet stops dead, hangs motionless, then reverses direction across the sky, every critical moment flagged directly on the dial. Then there's the dragon hand, a serpent-like pointer that tracks the lunar nodes, the crossing points where eclipses hide. When that hand slides beneath the sun's golden bead into the triangular windows, the machine screams a warning: eclipse season is here. Ancient cultures across the world described eclipses as dragons devouring the sun or moon. Here, that dragon lives in bronze, drifting slowly backward through the stars, one full circuit every 18.5 years. Using it is beautifully simple. Set the date ring to align with the zodiac. Turn the handle forward until you reach the day you want. Now read. The golden bead shows the sun's position. The painted sphere shows the moon's phase. Each planet's bead shows where it stands in the heavens and which phase of its cycle it's experiencing. If the dragon hand sits under the sun within the triangles, an eclipse is coming. Check the outer ring for the calendar date, and if the sun sits over a degree marked with a tiny letter, you look at the parapegma panels mounted above and below, ancient lists of seasonal events telling you which stars will rise or set that night. In one sweep of your eyes, you've read the entire sky, past, present, or future. Saturn creeps along its ring, taking 30 years to complete one orbit. Mars hits its opposition mark and blazes red in the midnight sky. Venus swings to greatest elongation and burns as the morning star. All of the Antikythera Mechanism reminds us that history isn't a straight line of progress. It's a fragile chain where brilliance can vanish as easily as it appears. What we uncovered from the depths wasn't just a machine, but a warning. Entire chapters of human knowledge can disappear, leaving only fragments behind. If one such device survived by chance alone, how many others were lost to time, war, and forgetting? And if the ancient world could build a machine that read the future, what else have we yet to rediscover?